Welcome back. Let's review what we have so far in our app. We've created our app component that contains a few custom React components that we've built. And in the last video, we were able to finally get our response from the Clarify API. If we go back to Clarify, we see that their face detection has a nice little square box that it detects. But if you look at the API and the response that we receive, we actually don't get that square box. All we get are these bounding box. And based on the face and how many faces it detects, it gives you these bounding boxes. And you can read through it over here, but these are just saying the top row is at 22% of the image. So these are percentages that we can use. But in order for us to create our own box like this, well, we need to just see what styles they're using by doing inspect. And as you remember, we can see that they have a bounding box class here. So in our app, we can do something similar, and then we'll just have to calculate based on the response where we can create these boxes because, well, just having the number displayed to our users doesn't mean much. It's nice to have this visual. So let's work on that in this video. If we go back to our app, we first want to say that, well, we're for sure going to add a new state and we'll call it box. And this box will just be an empty object to start off with. And this box will contain the values that we receive. In the case of our response, it'll be the top row, left column, bottom row, and then right column. So how can we do this? This requires a bit of thinking on our part, but we can start off with creating a function. And this function can say calculate face location. And this calculate face location will receive some data. And for now, we'll just keep it as an empty function. But we know that we want to call this function, calculate face location, based on the inputs that we get from Clarify. So in our case, with the response that they give us, we want to use this response and call calculate face location with the response data. And again, because we're using classes here, we'll have to do this dot. I also think this function looks a little bit messy right now. So I'm going to move a few things around. First off, using ES6, we can just do arrow functions here. That's much better. And instead of using this arrow, we can actually, with a promise, whenever you have a dot then, you can do a dot catch, and that is an error in case something fails. In our case, we can just console.log this error. So this already looks a little bit cleaner, but we need to define, and I forgot a bracket here, and now we also don't need this. Okay. So we know that this is going to get a response, which is the bounding box. But this response will receive what we console logged last time, which is getting the bounding box. For now, we're not going to worry about having multiple faces in the picture. We're just going to grab the first bounding box. Again, if we go back to the Clarify API, we see that depending on the regions, we actually get an array. So if we had multiple people, in the image will have multiple faces. In our case, we're just worrying about one, just trying to get one bounding box around a face. So we want to change this response to now say data, and we can just have a constant called clarify face equals this data. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so we can see. Now within here, what do we want to do first? Well, we're going to want to do some DOM manipulation. So the best thing we can do is say const image equals document dot get element by ID. And we can create an element, or we can create an ID called input image. And this input image that we're grabbing will be here. This image that links to the image URL, so the image that gets displayed in our app. So we can create an ID here, and we'll say image or input image. So now this input image is right here, we grabbed it. And we want to, as you remember, this bounding box is a percentage of the image. So if it's 0.22, that means it's at 20% of whatever the height or width of the image is. In our case, we can say that we for sure want to have the width of our image by saying image.width. And because this is going to be a string and we want to do some calculations on it, we'll wrap it in a number. This way we make sure that it is a number. And then we'll do height as well of the image that we just grabbed. And you know what? We can just console log now to see that we've been doing everything right, width and height. So let's try that. I'm going to save, go back to the image or to the app, grab this sample image, place it in, press detect, and let's look at the console. Get element, oh, I spelled that wrong. Thank God for the console. Element, I can't spell today. There you go. Let's try that again. Open it up, and we see 500 and 497. All right, we're grabbing the height and the width of the image. That's perfect. And as you know, this is 500 because we set it as 500. Remember, if we go to face recognition, we have width 500 pixels. And the reason that I don't just do 500 here is that, well, if somebody comes along, maybe a designer, and decides to change this, it won't get affected in here. It's always going to be calculating it. All right, so we have the width and the height. We also have the bounding box of clarify, which is right here. So we're going to receive this, and we need to do a bit of calculation. And I'm not going to lie, this took me about an hour, and I decided not to include it in this video because it was just me banging my brains with a little bit of math. So I am cutting to me trying to figure out the math to the solution. But I'm going to explain exactly how it works. We want to return here an object. And this object is going to be what's going to fill up the box state. Now, this object will first need to figure out the first dot, the second dot, the third dot, and the fourth dot around the face. And then we're going to just wrap it in a border. Again, if we go back to the Clarify API and inspect, we'd see that the bounding box is doing something similar. And we're going to use some of these styles. We'll say that the left column is going to be the Clarify face that we receive right up here. And as you remember, this has a left column property. And now this left column is the percentage of the width. So if we multiply by the width that we have here, well, which is 500, we're going to get the width of the actual displayed image and where the left column should be. So width. And the next one is going to be the top row. And top row is going to have the top row column, or sorry, the top row, not the column. And it's going to have the height. Again, the top row will say that the height of it is the percentage of our image height. Now the right column will be the subtraction of the width from the clarify face dot right column dot width, or multiply by the width. So again, because the right column is on this side, we want to get the number, which is the total percentage minus the width starting from the left-hand side. And finally, with the bottom row, we'll do something similar, but instead with height, and it'll be the clarify face bottom row, multiply it by height. All right, whew, that was a lot of math. That's as crazy as we're gonna get with our math. And I'll show you how I came up with these numbers a little bit later on once we have the bounding boxes, and I can show you how you can play around in the console. So now that we have these, we want to fill up the box state with these values. So maybe I can create another function, another method on this class that says display facebox. Not the greatest name for a function, but it's the one that I just came up with. And this is going to receive this return value. And it's going to say this dot set state to equal box. And just a reminder, with ES6, you can actually just do this, but just because this is clearer for now, we'll keep it this way. All right, so we have a few errors here, so let's check them out. Oh, and it's because I did semicolons here. I'm sure some of you were watching this video and saying, why is he putting semicolons in there? I don't like putting on the last one. Much better. All right, so the state is now set with the box. But let's see if so far everything is working. Going back to our on button submit, so when we click the button, we want to calculate face location with the response. This calculate face location is going to run this function. It's going to return an object. And this object is needed by the display facebox method. So it sounds like whatever this returns is this box parameter. So to make things clean, we can just put it right here saying this display facebox and wrap this function around. So this calculate face location takes the response, returns this object, and that returned object is now going into display facebox. Again, the beauty of JavaScript is that we can use functions like these. And it reads nicely too. Once we get the response, we calculate the inner function, which is calculate face location, and then display facebox. God, that's a terrible name, but like I said, for now it's fine. All right, that was a lot. Let's test out our code to make sure that we're on the right track. I'm going to console log here the box object. And if we go back, grab the face again, paste it in here, click and open up the console. We have an object. And all right, we have some numbers. That's good. Let's try and add some CSS so that these numbers appear on the face. It should correspond with the width. But looking at these numbers, it doesn't look too bad. If you remember, the image width is 500 pixels. And if the left column is at 131 pixels, which is probably around here, all right, it doesn't look too bad. Again, let's add some CSS to verify that we're calculating the right things. Now, what we want to do is we definitely want to pass this box state into our face recognition component. So we can just do box is going to have this dot state dot box. And now within face recognition, we now have a new prop that we can use. And this prop can be used by creating a new div. And this div is actually going to be completely empty because we're not displaying anything other than a border around this div. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to copy what Clarify has by calling a bounding box class. And we're going to create a new CSS file. Face recognition.css. And just so I don't forget, I'm going to import it right now. And this class, which has the bounding box, will have, well, let's look at what they have over here. I'm just going to copy this actually. Paste it in here. And there's a few things that, as you see, because they're crossed off, they're not actually being used. So we can remove those. You also see that they have the browser prefixes here for now. We're not too worried about using other browsers, so we can delete it. If you want to keep those on there, that's fine too. Now that we have that, let's see what happens. I've added the bounding box around the div. And now, if you look at the div class, you also see that they've added a style, which is what we might want to do with our top, right, bottom, left box properties that we just calculated. So let's do that. I'm going to say style equals, again, we're going to return an object. And this will have top as box. And I don't remember the name, so let's just come back here. Left, top row, left column, top row, right column, bottom row. All right, let's see if I can remember that. Left column, right is going to be box dot. Okay, I definitely can't remember them. Top row. And then it's going to be bottom, which will have right column, then left, which will have the bottom row. Oh, and I gotta add the box because they're properties of the box object. And you already saw them. I made the mistake over here. You see that left I have bottom. So let's fix that. We want to have the top row to be the top row here. We want the right column to be right column. And the bottom row to be the bottom row. And then finally, left column. Let's save and see what happens. I'm going to go back to our face. Let's see if I still have, nope, I don't have the link. Let me copy and paste it. Look at that. It's working. Let's just inspect this. And first of all, how cool is that we got this to work? and it's wrapped around the face perfectly. But I want to show you how I figured this out. Now, when I first did this, and again, I'm sparing you for an hour of me trying to figure out the math behind this, I initially had something where the box was a little bit off. And all I did was going up and down this way and figuring out where the box should be. And based on that, looking at the math and saying, okay, so that makes sense that the left column should be the left column percentage times the width, because now it's calculating the total width times the percentage of where the left column should be. And then let's say, for example, bottom row. Well, I know that the bottom row should start at the bottom. So the percentage that I get of the bottom row, I multiply by the height, and then I have to subtract it from the total height because the calculation starts from the top, not from the bottom. But you can play around with this, and as you can see, by pressing up and down arrows, you can adjust these. I'm really excited that we got that working in the first go. That looks amazing. Just to test this, let's throw another picture to see if this box moves around with the picture. You know what? Let's do something like Brad Pitt. And I said Brad Pitt instead of Brad Pitt. All right, so a picture of him where he's not looking, he's not dead center. How about this picture? This looks like a good one. Let's select it, go to our app, enter it, detect. Whoa, how cool is that? It's detecting the face. All right, just because this is a lot of fun, I'm going to pick one more. Let's do a hiker. Maybe we'll do a climber. And let's see if it can detect this face. That's going to be pretty tough. That's a pretty big picture. Let's see. Look at that. It detects the face. Even though the face is very tiny, it detects it. This is very, very cool. All right. I want to emphasize here that I made it look very, very easy. And one of the myths that I really want to bust here is that as a developer, just because I'm experienced doesn't mean I can do this quickly. I've definitely practiced this and made sure that I don't waste your time while you watch this video and that I keep the errors. And if I do anything by mistake, I do it intentionally to show you a point. But like I said, it took me a while to figure out how this box works, mainly because I had to do a bit of math and look at how Clarifai does it. But the power comes with simply the response that we get from it. By using this response, I can now add anything here. Maybe I wanted to replace this with an emoji, like a smiley face emoji. That's easy to do. It's simply adding a CSS style. And just to make sure that this is responsive, yeah, everything works beautifully. You now have an app that you can show off to your friends. But there's a few other things I want to fix before we get on to working on the backend. And that is, I want to make sure that the sign out feature works and we have a sign in form. So in the next video, we're going to do just that. I'll see you in that one. Bye-bye.